The office is quieter. Some desks are empty. People who were here yesterday are gone. You survived. For most people, that feels like good news, but nobody really explains what comes next. Managers avoid bringing up this difficult topic. No one tells you that surviving a layoff doesn't mean you're safe. It often just means your role was not the easiest one to remove at that point in time. And that's where most people misunderstand what just happened. Because what follows isn't obvious, but it happens almost every time. Every survivor goes through a similar emotional cycle. The first feeling is usually relief, that your name wasn't on the list. But it doesn't stay as relief for long, because it quickly turns into something else: guilt and sympathy for those who got the letter. Some of the people who left were colleagues. Some were friends, people who did nothing wrong. And then, after a few days, anxiety starts to take over. If it happened to them, could it happen to me? That's the question nobody really has the answer to. But most people don't stay with it long enough to give it the attention it deserves. Work picks up again. Meetings return. Deadlines come back. And slowly that anxiety gets buried. Everything starts to feel normal again. Just everyday busyness. No time to think about anything that doesn't feel urgent until the next round of layoffs happens again. And this time, no one knows if they will still be in the survivor group. And if they survive again, the same cycle repeats. And once that settles, something else starts to take over. Not inside you, but around you. After layoffs, companies usually say the same things to reassure the survivors: that it was a difficult decision, necessary, that the company is now better positioned. When results are bad, layoffs are presented as a response to performance. When results are good, layoffs are presented as preparation for the future. And the statement is almost never apologetic. It is framed as a necessary step, not a choice. But it is not a commitment that the worst is over. It doesn't mean it won't happen again. What matters more is what you observe after. Is pressure actually going down or quietly increasing? Because what disappears after layoffs is the noise. What usually doesn't disappear is the risk. And that's where it becomes dangerous, because everything looks stable again, which is exactly what the company wants after every layoff. And while all of that is being said, something else is quietly changing at the same time. The work doesn't leave with the people who were cut. It stays, and it gets redistributed. If you're still there, part of that work becomes yours. At first, it feels reasonable. The team is now leaner, understaffed. So the natural response is to push a bit harder for the team, for your colleagues, to return the favor of not being on the list. Weeks pass, then months. And what used to feel like extra responsibility becomes normal. No title change, no pay adjustment, no real conversation about it. Just a new baseline nobody formally agreed to. The extra work you are carrying is now your job. And you might think when the next round comes, you'll be safer. Usually not. You're just carrying more, at the same level of risk, and usually more tired. And after a while, this starts to feel normal, which leads to another assumption people make. Most people after a layoff tell themselves a simple story, that they stayed because they performed well. Sometimes that's true, but not always. Sometimes the whole team survived because the cuts happened somewhere else. Sometimes a manager protected certain people. Sometimes another function was easier to reduce. And sometimes the layoff quietly cleared out something else entirely. People who were difficult to manage. People who would have required formal HR processes to remove otherwise. The layoff made it easier. That's the part people don't want to think about. Surviving is not a certificate of safety. It is just the outcome of a moment that could have gone differently. And this is where things start to matter more. Because what most people do next isn't always helpful. This is where some people get it wrong. They react impulsively. Some decide to leave immediately, reacting to what just happened, trying to get ahead of the next round, even if the next offer isn't ideal. Others stay and do nothing, assuming they're in the safe group, and it won't affect them. Both feel reasonable, but both are risky without a plan. Before deciding anything, ask yourself some honest questions. Is the pay still fair for what you are carrying? Does the work still mean something to you? Are the people around you, your manager, your team, Still people you can work with? If all three are still reasonable, leaving immediately may not be the right move. A new company can solve one problem and introduce others you didn't expect. But staying and doing nothing is equally risky, because doing nothing is still a choice. It just feels safe. The only real advantage surviving gives you is time. The best time to understand your options is when you still have a job, not when you are forced to find one. Explore quietly, look both internally and externally, with some urgency, but not panic, just awareness. And underneath all of this, there's a deeper layer most people only see much later. There is something most people only realize after seeing it happen. An entire team got cut once. A strong team, a team that had brought real customers to the business. The manager knew the relationships at risk and the damage to the market. But the decision came from headquarters. It was non-negotiable. The headcount reduction target on the spreadsheet had to be met. That moment taught something important. Decisions get made far away from the work being done. At that level, you are not seen as a person, you are seen as headcount. So when a company says you are valued, that usually means it's true in that moment. But value depends on context, and context can change very quickly. Loyalty to a company and security within a company are two completely different things. One you control, one you never did. And once you see it this way, the situation starts to look very different. Layoffs don't really end when the announcement is over. For most people, that's when the more important part begins. But the pattern usually repeats the same way. Relief, then guilt, then quiet worry, then distraction, and then surprise when it happens again. It doesn't have to repeat like that, because surviving didn't make you safe, it just bought you time. And what you do with that time is what actually changes the outcome next time. Work is not your life. It is something you use to build your life. The job is the vehicle, not the destination. And understanding that difference changes how you plan, how you move, and how you prepare before the next wave comes. Because it will come. Most people only realize that after it happens again.